Hello everyone and welcome to my Dungeon Crawlers tutorial. Today we're going to be covering everything you need to know on how to play Dungeon Crawlers. Now you may be asking, what is Dungeon Crawlers? Dungeon Crawlers is a game I built that's very similar to Tango Tech's Decked Out game. If you haven't heard of him, I highly recommend you go check out his videos. Dungeon Crawlers is a collecting slash trading game. If you are lucky enough to get out of the dungeon alive, you will receive artifacts, which are all part of a set. There's common, uncommon, rare, and epic. Each set that you collect will need to be turned into me, and I will add a point to your score. If I'm not on at the moment, then place the completed set in the barrel at the base of your character board. Scoreboard is in the dungeon shop and will be updated daily. But there is a catch. All of your artifacts must remain on your character board at all times, unless you are in the process of trading with another player. If your character board is full, you must choose which ones you want to keep and put the extra ones in the barrel at the base of your character board. I will trade them out for dungeon coins later. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins, and yes, there will be an actual prize for winning. Earlier I mentioned a dungeon shop and dungeon coins. Dungeon coins can be found in the dungeon hidden in barrels. You can use these to try to buy an artifact from another player or use them at the dungeon shop. Every few days the dungeon shop will be updated with new items. If you look behind the item, you will see a lamp. If the lamp is off, then that means the item is sold out. If it's on, then put the correct amount of dungeon coins in the barrel and your item will appear in the barrel. Across from the dungeon shop is the dungeon key timer. When all the lamps are on, go ahead and press this button and a dungeon key will pop out from the floor. Another way to get your hands on a key and some coins is to keep an eye out for black shulker boxes spread out randomly across the map near populated areas. Every couple of days I will place another shulker box somewhere, so keep an eye out for these. So, how do you get started? First, you find an unclaimed character board. Look for one that has a lamp on and doesn't have someone's name at the top. And the barrel at the base will be a sign and glow ink. Go ahead and put your name at the top of the character board. In the shulker on the left is your character's inventory. This is where you can store your dungeon keys, coins, experience, and other dungeon related items. Not your artifacts though. The shulker on the right is your character's stats. Leave these in there at all times and no trading or giving stats to other players. These are your stats only. I recommend you keep these two shulkers where they are when you're not using them so that you don't lose them. When you're ready to enter the dungeon, grab your character stats, a dungeon key, and follow me. First, check to see if the dungeon is ready by seeing if the lamp is on above the entrance door. If so, enter your key and wait a few seconds for the dungeon to choose your fate. When it does, you will receive a spellbook and a compass to the destination where you must use your spellbook. Place your stat shulker on the glowstone and flip the lever down to activate and customize the dungeon to your character stats. Next, set your spawn and put all of your items, including your armor, into the chests. Make sure to eat before because just like the movie theaters, there is no outside food allowed. The only things you can bring with you are your compass, spellbook, and any other in-game dungeon items that are specified to be allowed to bring with you. Now you are ready to enter the dungeon. The dungeon has multiple different themes and is haunted by the spirits of the other dungeon crawlers that have died within the dungeon trying to reach the treasure books. Whatever you do, do not be too loud or else you may awaken the spirits. When you're too loud, you'll hear this noise and your heartbeat will increase. If you anger the spirits enough, they will raise the walls of the dungeon, allowing the beasts of the dungeon to find you more easily. Make sure to crawl, aka crouch, to make less noise, but be mindful of the beasts. So how is it played? When you enter the first room of the dungeon, make sure you didn't forget anything, because once you leave the dungeon, there is no going back in. So make sure not to leave until you are completely done. You'll want to follow your compass to the destination that it thinks is haunted, and you'll need to cast your spell, aka throw the book on the ground. If it's the right spot, your spell book will disappear and a treasure book will pop up just a couple blocks away. Now you will probably want to make your way out of the dungeon before you die and lose your treasure book. But make sure to check barrels along the way. Some of them will randomly have dungeon coins or even dungeon food. If dungeon food is to ever leave the dungeon, please do not bring it back in. If you're back here, that means you made it out alive. Or you probably died like most other players. But don't worry, because whether you live to tell the tale or not, you won't leave empty-handed. Once your run is finished, and only when it's finished, press this button to receive some dungeon XP. Keep this in your inventory shulker at all times and do not give this to anyone else. Now flip the lever up to turn off the dungeon and to get your stats back. Wait a moment for your stats to return to your shulker, then take it when you're ready. Now exit the dungeon back into the lobby so the spirits can settle down and the dungeon can reset. If you gain enough XP to level up, notify me and I will let you choose your next stat. There's an XP chart in the stat room. If you were somehow fortunate enough to find a treasure book, come over to this barrel and enter your treasure book. In return, you'll get a treasure box full of dungeon items. Empty this out and put the empty shulker in the other barrel so I can refill it later with more treasure. Now that you've done enough runs to gain a new stat, it's time to decide what you want. There are a max of 14 stats to choose from that customize the dungeon. The stats are Sneak 1, which allows you to not awaken the spirits as easily. You'll hear this noise when that happens. Luck 1, which allows more dungeon loot to spawn in the barrels. Feast 1, which allows you to find dungeon food more often. Beast Sense 1, which gives you the ability to see the beasts for a moment before they see you. Sneak 2, which is an upgraded version of Sneak 1. A new area, which gives you a whole new level of the dungeon if you can find the right secret room and press the correct button. You need to have a minimum of 5 stats before you can choose this one. Beast Sense 2, which allows you to see the beasts more frequently. Luck 2, even more potential loot to be found. Feast 2, food, glorious food. Luck 3, so much loot. Sneak 3, you're basically a ninja at this point. Crawling is for chumps. Hops, you need at least 10 stats before you can get this one. This will allow you to reach places that other crawlers can't, so use this however you choose. Thick Skin, be able to take an extra hit or two from the beast before dying. This requires at least 10 stats. And Speed, those beasts won't be able to keep up with you now. This one also requires 10 stats before you can unlock it. Now a quick rundown of all the rules. No outside items may enter the dungeon. You must be completely naked. No breaking of any blocks or placing any blocks. And no damaging any mobs within the dungeon. Only one dungeon crawler can be in the dungeon at all times. The maximum number of artifacts you can have are just what you can fit on your character board. No extras. Also, don't steal from other players. You'll ruin the fun. Keep your character stats and XP to yourself. No sharing, no trading. Return all empty shulkers as soon as possible, and most importantly, have fun dying in the dungeon. Until next time, crawlers.